Good morning, Budget Committee members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Wendy Porch. I'm the Executive Director of the Centre for Independent Living in Toronto, also known as SILT. I am a short white woman with long dark hair, and today I'm wearing a red shirt. I'm also a person with a disability. I served as a member of the city's Accessibility Advisory Committee for years. I also chaired the city's Accessibility Task Force on COVID-19 vaccines. I'm a member of the Accessible Housing Working Group and the Shelter and Housing Advisory Committee, known as SHAC. My organization, SILT, has supported disabled Torontonians for more than 40 years. We are also the convener of the GTA Disability Coalition, bringing together organizations across the region. Just last week, we co-hosted a budget town hall with members of the disability community, Social Planning Toronto, and TTC riders. Our community also contacts us on a daily basis for information and advice. What I hope to convey to you today is not just abstract policy analysis, it is what we are hearing from disabled people on a day-to-day basis, clearly and consistently. So let me begin with one example. We know of a disabled person in Toronto who is currently living out of their car. They had an apartment, they experienced a significant health challenge, went on ODSP, and they were pressured by their landlord to leave the apartment, and so now they live in a car. The places that are available to them are not accessible, they cannot afford them, and so instead of a home, they sleep in a vehicle, not because housing doesn't exist, but because accessible and affordable housing does not exist in the City of Toronto. And this is what happens when accessibility is treated as optional rather than essential, and this is not an isolated incident. At our town hall last week, we spoke about housing insecurity, affordability, and the growing gap between disability incomes and the cost of living in Toronto. People welcome the increased investment in the rent bank, but application limits mean people are still being turned away from that program. And what we know is that when disabled people lose housing, the consequences are immediate and severe. People also welcomed the TTC fare cap, which matters, but that appreciation was paired with concern because the fare is still too expensive for many people with disabilities, and the lack of snow removal in our city makes accessing transit almost impossible in the wintertime anyway. We heard from community members about places like New York City, where transit is substantially subsidized for disabled people, and in London, UK, where I myself lived for many years, the use of all buses and trams is entirely free for disabled people. This is clearly not the case in Toronto. Again and again, the same message came through to us. Disabled people do not see themselves in our city's budget. They do not see disability named, they do not see accessibility tracked year over year, and they do not see where spending is clearly targeted to ensure that the city that they live in is a city in which they can live safely, stably, and with dignity. And people with disabilities are not a small group. They experience poverty at twice the rate of the rest of the community. They are overrepresented among food bank users. They face higher rates of violence, instability in housing, and homelessness. Yet disability still seems to remain largely invisible in city planning and budgeting. The City of Toronto, I know, is a major housing provider. I know you know that. But you don't know how many units you have yourself that are accessible and whether disabled people live in them. There is much work to be done with our shelters. The shelters, despite us knowing that they are not accessible to disabled people, continue to operate. And the funding available, it appears that there's very little funding available to make capital improvements around accessibility for our shelters. Poverty initiatives in the City of Toronto do not name disabled people. Again and again and again, we hear that disabled people do not see themselves represented in the needs of our city. These are not data gaps, rather, but these are budget choices. It is in how the city plans, procures, maintains, and budgets for its services. Some cities treat disability inclusion as a core municipal issue. For example, the City of San Francisco has a dedicated office on disability and accessibility that is directly tied to the mayor's office. It has a mandate to coordinate accessibility across all initiatives in the city. Toronto does not have this level of coordination or clarity. So this morning, quickly, I'll ask for 4 things. Disability responsive poverty reduction. Please call out disability in the poverty reduction plan.
You're almost at time.
I realize that. That's why I'm trying to speed up. Accessible housing as essential infrastructure. Please make it impossible to build housing funded by the City of Toronto that is not accessible. Thirdly, visibility and accountability for accessibility resources across city services. And finally, clear municipal accountability for accessibility. When it is not clearly made accountable to someone, it is accountable to no one.
Thank you,
So
Wendy.
thank you
I'm going
very
to have
much.
to stop you there.
I appreciate it.